Hi, I'm Jignasha. Keep listening to the Voice It Out podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Voice It Out podcast. Shyama, how are you?
I'm good. Amrita, how are you?
I'm all good, thanks. We are still in a very rainy London, are we not?
Still. When is the sun? When is the sun coming out?
I feel like I've stopped asking that.
I know.
Anyway, so we have got a very exciting guest today.
We do.
Once again. Her name is Jignasha Ruparelia, and she has had a background in banking, relationship banking and credit for the last decade. She has recently had a career change in the learning and development area of still in a banking sector, but in learning and development.
Yeah.
And she says this is boring. I don't think this is boring at all. She is married, 15 years married, and has two very lovely daughters. So we'd like to welcome Jignasha. Hi, Jigs.
Hi, Jigs.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, today's conversation, we hope, will be around kind of challenges that you faced in your career and generally about, your work towards South Asian Heritage Month and also just the challenges we face as Asian women in our careers or in this episode, more in your corporate career. I think it's quite an interesting subject because I think a lot of people will relate to this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really interesting. You've done so much. So it's like, and on top of that, it's like, you've got quite a colourful sort of professional life and quite a colourful personal life. Like, that's what we think anyway. So,
Exactly. So just to briefly, like as I touched on, so you've recently had a career change. You've gone into learning and development. Now, this is something that is really close to my heart as well, because I feel learning and development in the workplace is so important. But in most workplaces, it's just so difficult to do. It proves a challenge when you talk about business continuity, when you talk about just general time. I think a lot of people or a lot of businesses or a lot of kind of teams might struggle time-wise. But my initial question to you, this is coming at you, is why did you choose to change at this time when you've got a really strong background for 10 years in credit and relationships in banking?
So, yeah, as you say, I've spent the vast majority of my career, so almost 18 years in relationship banking and then moving into credit. But I actually went on a 1-hour seminar, and it was around what does career success mean to you? And that means to you, not to society, not to people around you. What does it mean to you? And what the lady did was she made us go through each of our roles. And she said, in that role, aside from what you were doing as your job, what do you enjoy outside of that? And for me, and that was the moment where I realised that in every role I've had, I've always played a people role alongside. So whether that's getting new people under my wing, sharing best practice, putting on learning sessions, doing a lot of inclusion and diversity work, that's all been present even very early in my career. And it was at that point where a light bulb almost went off to say, well, if you do it so much and if you enjoy it so much, why don't you see about pursuing it as a career? So I did, as I say, a lot of inclusion and diversity work, a lot of learning and development work on the side, and I took the step in a very safe way. I took a secondment, so still within the same function that I work in now, so that's risk function, but in a totally different team. And I took on a secondment, really enjoyed it, and it was made permanent earlier this year.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, how did it feel like, having that? Because there's one thing someone saying it, and at the time it's very much like, they kind of paint a picture of, oh, you can do anything, and you believe it, you really believe it. But then when you actually go and do it, sort of, how was that for you? Because being in sort of the same kind of role for quite a long time, and then kind of changing. So how did you kind of convince yourself to sort of be like, okay, someone's told me I believe in myself, but then actually putting that into practice? Like, how was that for you?
Huge learning curve as well, because I'm surrounded by people actually that have a people background. So they've got related degrees, they've been in the space for a long time. So sometimes trying to not compete, but hold your own in that environment can be quite challenging because you're engaging with very senior stakeholders as well. But for me, it's about being honest and using my experience of actually where I've been in the bank to actually help create a better environment, because it's very rare that you get people that move from the business into a people area.
Yeah,
You need
Absolutely.
understanding of what people want and what people need. So that's what I work on, and having sort of done the bits and pieces I've done throughout my career helps build your confidence a little bit, but it doesn't take much as a South Asian people just to get knocked down.
absolutely.
Yeah, well, this is exactly it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So true. So I just wanted to ask you, when you went on that course and when you kind of, a switch kind of went off, you had like a light bulb moment, whatever you want to call it. Obviously, I feel like I've been on courses where I've had light bulb moments. Not maybe as that strong, but they've been light bulb moments nonetheless. But like, I've never acted on it. So what kind of did you think that, okay, the secondment, like you said, was a safe option, which I absolutely understand. But what kind of, how do I say, how did you pursue that? And like, how do you, I know that was kind of a dip in for you to maybe see whether it's the right thing for you to do or what it, but what kind of level of confidence did you have to make that about turn kind of thing?
Yeah, it is a lot of confidence in a way that I'm leaving the people I know, I'm leaving the work that I know, and I'm moving into a completely different area where people don't necessarily know me, building our reputation again. But on the flip side, I'm also bringing along the people that I used to work with, so I've got that buy-in with those stakeholders. And I guess what was really important for me and important for a lot of people is to have a strong sort of management team that sits behind you.
Yeah.
So having open and honest conversations, and everybody that knows me knows how passionate I am about it. And I won't lie, the first conversation I had with my line manager, I approached it with trepidation, because I thought, taking a risk here, because I'm saying I effectively want to leave the business that I'm in.
Yeah.
But if I'm not successful in what I want,
You might want to come back.
I might want to.
Yeah.
But then people
it's true.
write me off, right?
Yeah, it's true, because the mentality. Yeah, the mentality would be, oh, you decided to move, and oh, now you want to come back.
I'm going to write you off now. I'm not going to put you forward.
Yeah.
Shit programs, things like that, right? But my boss at the time was really supportive. He said, look, he goes, you've done your time here. It is time for you to be really supportive. And I didn't get this role the first time. I went through 3, 4, 5 different interviews and get to the last stage, and I'm picked by somebody who's already in that space. And sometimes it's really hard to keep going.
Yeah.
Because you're not quite, and you're like, okay, you came second, or it was only because of this. And for me in the bank, I'm a great believer in things happen at the right time for the right reason. And certainly when I look back now, even when I went to apply for a job in this team, I didn't get it the first time. But my now line manager at the time said to me, you've really impressed me. I'd like to take you on a secondment basis. And that wasn't even the secondment I'm on now. It was
for
me to work for her half a day a week.
Oh, that's quite,
yeah.
A bit that way. So I suppose what the message is that if you really want to pursue something, there are ways that you can do it. Like what you're doing in a really safe way. It is a bit of a radical move. It is, people say, oh my God, you're really brave for doing that. But it's like, at my core, I want to make a difference to people. And that's what really drove me to make that move. And as I say, I've had moments of, oh my God, what am I doing?
Can imagine.
as we all do.
We do, but the thing is, I think what's really interesting with what you said is that it was other people around you saying that, no, you're good for this. Like, we're very, very good in being like, I'm not good enough. Having that almost overthinking, like, we have to be more loyal to whatever we're doing. And everyone around us is like, no, we want to see you grow and we think you're really good. And, so it's really, really interesting that you said that, because it's sort of like, I think it would probably it would have been a lot harder if you didn't have that backing, and
and I'd be very quick to say that to other people.
Yes, this is another thing,
right? Because I do a lot of mentoring and all that kind of thing, and I'm very good at sort of saying that, what, you've got this. These are the skills that you've got. This is what you're going for. This is what you need to bring out in your interview. This is how you need to do this. But then when it comes to myself, do I do I see those strengths and those opportunities? Probably not as well, and that probably goes for a lot of people.
I think it's more of a universal thing, and I'm gonna say I see it more in women.
Yeah,
you know, and it's sort of like, and it's also this idea of change not being a good thing. Like I don't know if you got people saying, but you've got it so good here, why do you want to, like, why do you want to change, and why do you want to do
I
something
totally
different?
agree, because I feel like a lot of people do discourage, especially when you want to make a change when you've had a background in something. But I think there is a level of bravery that goes with it.
Absolutely.
So I do agree with the people who say to you, you're quite brave. And as I was just saying actually recently, that for us, we've had, obviously, when we started this podcast, this is a leap of faith as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And we were just saying at the core of it, it's because we enjoy talking to people, we enjoy talking to each other, we enjoy having these conversations. So why not bring them to the forefront and put them in a podcast? Essentially, that's what it is. We're taking what our real life is and we're putting it into a podcast.
But it's also we're actually learning so much about ourselves and about the people that we've got on. So it's sort of, but it's something where people would be like, especially when we decided to change, it was like, okay, so why would you do that? You've got it so good, and and it's like, only you know what you want, and it's only up to a certain amount where I think, did you ever feel like, okay, if I don't take this, then what would that mean for you? And what would it have meant for you?
I mean, for me, it was I'll do it.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, I can always come back. Right.
Yeah.
And that's and that was the message my boss gave to me as well. He's like, you're not gonna come back. If it doesn't work out, it will mean that, it won't necessarily mean that you weren't right for the role. Maybe the team wasn't right for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's definitely where you should be. So and just having that voice of confidence behind you, it makes so much difference. I mean, earlier on in my career, when I first moved into credit, it was like it was like I joined a whole new bank.
Really?
Yeah. It was like, even though I was still within the same bank, I'd left frontline relationship banking and moved into credit, and I felt like I'd joined a whole new bank. The language was different, the systems were different.
Wow. Was the culture different as well, a little bit?
It was different.
Okay. That's so interesting.
And you really need people to help you make that transition. And I firmly believe that having enjoyment in a job is 90% or 95% about the people you work with, rather than the job.
So true.
Yeah.
And it was a very difficult transition. And having a line manager or a team that puts their confidence in you really, really helps you progress, because it's like, okay, I'll take on this difficult. I've been in a number of, as you get in a number of corporate roles, very difficult conversations, having to say no to something that you've really tried hard to find every avenue to make work, and managing stakeholder relationships.
It's probably one of the toughest things.
It is, yeah, absolutely.
It's hard, but having a line manager that says, look, I know you can do this. I've got every confidence that you know what you're talking about, right? Because imposter syndrome,
absolutely, it's real.
It's in very difficult situations. And I've had some really good line managers that have said, look, if you need help, I'm standing right behind you, but you don't. But I'm there if you need it. And that's sometimes all you need. It's just
the fallback position.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it is that age-old phrase, right? That the people that you want around you are the ones where, what they're saying about you when you're not there. Not when you're not in the room.
That's true.
And I've had some really good people behind me that I know that if I'm not in the room, they're there. And there are still, in this day and age, there are people that, oh, your face doesn't fit, your voice doesn't fit, your accent doesn't fit.
Yeah.
And trying to overcome those biases, even when you don't know that they're there, you need somebody.
Absolutely. And what you're saying is absolutely true. Like, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, especially it's the people that make your job. And it's like, I mean, there's also the danger zone of becoming too comfortable where you are.
Yes. You can become comfortable, and that's okay. If that's what you want, if you're comfortable where you are, that's fine. But for me, I've always wanted to change. Once I stopped learning in a role, I either want stretch,
Yeah.
So, I mean, my name means thirst for knowledge. So, right, so
There you go.
There you go. So the thing I wanted to ask you actually is when you said that you've got, obviously you had credit or that kind of role or team or whatever it was to fall back on, how do you think you would have felt if you delved into the learning and development side and have had to come back? Maybe it wasn't the right fit, like like your manager would have said, maybe it wasn't the right team for you, maybe the role wasn't right, maybe you just deserved something that was different. Your personality and the skills that you were bringing to it. But how do you think you would have felt if you did have to fall back?
I think I would have felt disappointed, embarrassed. I don't know if I'd probably not embarrassed. But it takes you'd have to. It's a bitter pill to swallow, isn't it?
Yeah.
You go out, you make this,
You're taking a risk. Yeah.
Yeah.
and then you come back.
Yeah.
That's the nice thing about a secondment is that
That you do have an end almost.
Yeah.
you do have.
A certain time. Yeah.
It's a good way of somebody testing whether you fit into their team, but also you testing whether this is the right thing for you. And I'm a big advocate of making safe moves that way because it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
No. Yeah. Absolutely not.
And never burn your bridges.
That's true. Well,
This is
it's
true.
so true. Like it doesn't. And I think we sort of making sure that obviously change is always going to be there, but yeah, you're absolutely right in saying like it doesn't have to be a be and end all, and and I think it's not just the fact that your line managers are great. It's you've made that effort for you to be able to keep those relations as well. So it's detriment to you too, and you have to kind of own that as well. Like and I mean, yeah, it's. Let's say that you had even when I'm guessing you're really enjoying it, but let's say it wasn't something you went into it and it wasn't something that it wasn't what you thought it was.
Yeah.
Like, how do you deal with situations like that, like in the workplace, but then even like at home? Because it's one of those things where I'm just thinking, you're saying all these things about working and self-doubting yourself, but you're a mum of two. You are the woman of the house who you're a manager of your house. And I think with this is exactly it. And I think especially for Asian women, it's this whole thing of like at home, you would never see that as a corporate thing, but you're literally managing different personalities, different age groups, everything. And
it takes a lot of skill.
It takes a lot of skill. And it's like you are so that is something that just comes naturally. But then when it comes to being that in a professional context, we kind of something happens in our mind where it just switches.
We don't associate them as skills.
Yes.
Yeah, but they definitely are. Yeah.
They absolutely are.
Stakeholder management.
Yeah. Especially in British Asian communities.
Absolutely.
Prioritization, deadline.
Yeah. Exactly.
But you don't translate it into skill. And that's one of the things I think that as we evolve in our careers, and definitely, I mean, when I look at the things that I'm doing at work, I'm looking at focusing more on skill and passion rather than, being fixated with a grade or a job or a particular area. Because if you focus on your skills, you'll always be able to find somewhere you can go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you tie that in with something you really enjoy, and actually that will lead you potentially down the same path that you're on, but in a different way, or down something completely new. But it's about sort of having those moments where you think, okay, what is it that I'm really good at? What is it that I'd like to be good at? And how can I find a way to do that? And it's not just an onus on the individual. Actually, particularly in the corporate world, doors can tend to be quite closed with, oh, you need a degree in this, and oh, you need experience in this. Actually, what you need is a good, strong set of transferable skills, and the willingness to learn, and somebody willing to give you a chance. And that's what I needed. Somebody who's willing to give me a chance to make the change into my career. I then later found out my line manager was also ex-credit, but now she's in the people.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
Yeah. And I think if we talk about, cultural barriers to career progression, for example, there's not enough Asian or South Asian female role models in the corporate space.
Do you think there's a reason for that? in your personal, obviously, corporate
Yeah.
experience?
It could be that there's maybe you've got a disparity in your population, that there aren't enough ethnic minorities, female, males, any sort of. If you look at the spectrum of sort of inclusion and diversity, you've got a lack of something somewhere.
Yeah.
And so you don't have enough to climb up. There are still biases at play, and so our organisations, are they confident that their systems are correct in their recruitment, in their promotion, that
They're being fair, yeah.
being fair?
Mhm.
And are they committed to creating the right environment and the culture for people to bring their whole selves to work? Because if you can't bring your whole self to work, how can you?
Yeah, you're not going to be able to present. You're not going to be able to present yourself in the right way.
Being authentic and when they're not.
Yeah.
And if they can't be authentic, that's very present.
Yeah.
And if you're living as somebody else, that's really tiring. If you feel like you can't bring yourself,
I think that reflects in behaviour as well, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Eventually,
absolutely.
you can tell when someone is genuinely not happy, because I don't think that. I think it's a level of happiness.
I think
to
it's
be
as well. Yeah,
authentic.
absolutely.
It goes back to finding something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
About
Exactly.
it's physically draining you, and you're working long hours, and you're taking it out on the family because you can't spend time with them. I mean, I went through a period of that too. Part of my career transition was because during COVID and lockdown, work was horribly busy, and we had homeschooling, and we were all in the house.
God, yeah.
Hard, right? And that those pressures. I was homeschooling during the day, and I was writing papers till 3-4 in the morning almost every day, and that takes its toll on you mentally, physically, and then you've got to find a way out of it. Now, the credit world wasn't going to change, so I needed to change. So I looked at, I went on that 1 hour seminar. I took out an hour. I'm so glad.
Yeah.
So what was it actually about? How do I ask the question? So you knew you needed to move from the credit arena kind of thing, but when you saw that course and when you applied to be part of it, was there anything? Was it just I just want an hour away from my normal day-to-day job, or was it genuinely, I'm interested in this, I want to move into this area, let's see what happens? Like, what did you have in your head?
It was called "What Does Career Success Mean to Me?" and the emphasis was on me.
Okay.
And I thought, this sounds different. I've not been on one of these before. Did I have an hour to spare out the day? Probably not. In the grand scheme,
Yeah.
it's worth that.
It's exactly what I meant about learning and development.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because can you imagine if you didn't?
Anything else as a priority?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And what was really important that came across was that we can tend to follow career paths because we feel that that's the expectation, right? It's a well-trodden path, so you should go from this to this to this.
Yeah.
But is that really what aligns with your morals, your core values, your passions? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And there's a slight cultural element to that because, even in this day and age, I agree that from our generation downwards, we've probably branched out a bit more career-wise.
Yeah.
If you're looking at sort of our parents' generation, you'd be looking at bankers, lawyers, doctors,
Accountants.
accountants, really good, solid,
financially stable in a way. Positions. Yeah.
Stemming probably from the fact that when our parents came here, they didn't have that financial.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was literally sort of, but it was also very sort of, their living was very like work, home, that's it. And I don't think they were like, they weren't as exposed to things because this actually reminds me of a conversation that my granddad had with one of my cousins when he was moving on from his first job. He's like, I want to move up and stuff like that. And everyone else kind of understood, he's had his first job and now he's ready to move on. And when he told my granddad was like, why? What do you mean you're moving a job? And he's like, oh, because I want more money and I want, I'm kind of done with this role. And my granddad just didn't get it. He's like, yeah, but you have a job already. They're giving you a job. It was almost as though you should be
grateful. Yeah.
You should be grateful for them for allowing you to be a part of their company, and they're giving you, why would you sort of,
it's just a different mentality.
it is a completely different mentality. And it's sort of just like, even still, it's all very, even my parents' generation, only now as they're like, all my aunties and my uncles and all their kids are growing up and doing different things, it's still a very kind of carefully trodden path. Don't do anything like, anytime, any one of us talk about, oh, we're trying to like look for a new, I'm thinking of moving on. There'll always be, but don't quit your job before you've got another one. Make sure it's that instant.
I think it's the financial stability.
Yeah.
Of it. They've still got that in their minds.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, just make sure that you've got
that work ethic. And you touched on a really good point. You should be grateful.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That still stems from, people still feel that. There's a lot of people that think, you know what, culturally, oh, I'm grateful to get a promotion. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to have this opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're grateful for it, but you've earned it.
Yeah. I think we have to give yourself some credit. Yeah.
Promoting you. Nobody's doing you a favour by giving you a job. It's because they've seen something in you that they want. And it's quite difficult to get out that mentality, because it is very much an ethnic minority.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
That, culturally come into play.
Yeah.
To be grateful for something that, we're taught as, South Asian females that, or just ethnic minorities in general, don't brag about your achievements.
Yes.
Right? Be humble in everything that you do. Yes, be humble, but in the corporate world, if you don't shout about,
I was just about to say that.
That's true.
Yeah. You have to fight your own corner in that sense.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right? That I'd still, I've got better at it over the years. I've done this, I've done that, but it feels very me. And we're not
used
we
to
are
that.
not, no.
That
Absolutely
way.
not.
And going into a room full of senior people, you're taught to respect and listen to your elders, right?
Yeah, which is a different mentality. It's a different mindset altogether, because you should be
meeting. You have to hold.
Exactly. You have to
absolutely.
be confident in yourself. Yeah.
Senior that could be 3, 4, 5 grades above you,
but you might know more.
You might.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You are an expert in what you need to do. But
Yeah.
that cultural element comes in, because you're like, oh my God, they're more senior than me. If I say something, I could rock the boat, right? Whereas, would your male counterpart, or would your non-ethnic minority counterpart, would they think twice?
Even if they were female,
But
no,
you know what?
wouldn't.
It does go back to something that you said, in terms of like making sure when you go for something, it's not just, are you a good fit for them, but are they a good fit for you as well? And it's sort of like that whole thing of like, just take what you're given.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, you shouldn't. If you go into a workplace where you are sort of being because there are still places that, like you said, still sort of like have a disparity almost with sort of ethnic minorities and like people with disabilities, whether it's biased or unbiased, or unconscious or conscious. It's like, you still have to stand your ground and be like, no, if this is not working for me, then I'm gonna I need to do something about it, and they're not worth doing that, And it is this whole thing of like, we should be, oh my God, we're so thankful, and
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
I think in our parents or grandparents' generations, we still have that. They still think you should be in the job, and you should, be really, feel really great that you've got a job in this or whatever. But I think in our generation and beyond our generation, I think we are more about, hold on, what about me? But I think that is still difficult, like we've just said, in the South Asian female kind of aspect of it, because we are always taught to not shout about ourselves, and it's so true. So I just wanted to ask, actually, before we move on, about South Asian Heritage Month. So you said you're doing some activities for this. So I just wanted to talk to you about that. What are you actually doing?
So it's the first time that my organisation has celebrated South Asian.
Oh wow! Is there a reason behind that? Why they're doing it this time?
I think it's the ethnic minority network.
Okay.
Perfect. We've taken it forward.
That's great.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah, fantastic.
Culturally, it's really important.
It's a very good conversation to start. Yeah, that's fantastic.
One of the first conversations we had was around career confidence for South Asian females in particular, but for generally for ethnic minorities, and lots of activity going on, and basically just getting people on the journey, right? Because it's important to have an environment where you see other people like you, and you have an unspoken language, right? Because you've got a common cultural background. You could be facing similar issues, and you're in a population where you don't have to explain certain things, right? Because there's an unspoken agreement. But also important to that is bringing that allyship with you. So you have that audience that is somebody that looks like you, sounds like you, but you need to bring allies on the journey, because you can't progress without having allyship. You want line managers understanding. You want your non-ethnic minority colleagues understanding, so that you can create that safe space and that safe culture where everybody can bring themselves.
So what has been the most challenging, do you think, about that? Because when I'm thinking about the workplaces I've worked in, there have been some fantastic managers who have absolutely understood that it's not their culture, it's not their religion, but they are very aware, or not even just aware, but just open to the conversation of, okay, you're celebrating this festival, it's big in your religion, maybe you might need some time out, or whatever it might be, just little things. I think there are still a lot of challenges, but how have you found it, like in the workplace, and bringing on South Asian Heritage Month as an actual event?
I would say that things in the corporate world look very different now, even than 3-4 years ago.
Really?
We're having conversations now that you wouldn't even think to bring to the table then, which is great. And
it is.
It doesn't feel, certainly in my organisation, it doesn't feel like lip service, right? So some people do the one and done, hire a few ethnic minorities on the board,
It's like
tick the box.
tick boxes.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also that tick box culture is like, it doesn't work, because it's like,
just on the surface.
It is, because it's sort of just like, okay, like there are, it could just be at certain points of an organization's time, they've got more of a sort of similar culture kind of people, because they're actually doing good work. And then, but if they're constantly like researching and rolling out sort of how they do their sort of employment process and stuff like that, eventually it will happen. But hiring someone just to be like, oh, okay, we need to tick that box, can actually be quite detrimental.
It's difficult, right, for the person.
That's what I was going to say, for the person.
Like, have I only been hired because I'm Asian, I'm female, I'm under 40, I've got a flexible working pattern?
Exactly.
Is it because of those things? And until the culture is completely right, there could be an element of, but then that's down to the line manager and to the colleague understanding that actually you're here, you've earned your right to be here, you have a seat at the table. And it's about having that cultural aspect. And organisations, they understand now that actually having a diverse representation,
it's beneficial.
Just in monetary terms, they are so much more profitable.
I think it's best beneficial. Yeah, exactly.
Because do you feel like you've had to, like, wherever you've had times where you are the ethnic minority, you feel like you've had to prove yourself so much more than anybody else?
You are only as good as your last good
success or whatever.
And you've got to constantly be at the top of your game. Because you're constantly proving yourself. That in itself is really, really tough.
It is. Because then it's like, it's almost as though like you feel like everyone's looking at you. So you and someone else can be on the same role, but because there's something different about you, there is more onus on, okay, but how do you perform? It's fine for them because they are whoever the other person is very similar to everybody else. But there's something that is different about you. So there's more sort of direction of, what are you doing? How well are you doing? And we're going to judge you.
I think, I
feel pressure.
Yes.
I was just about to say, but sometimes I feel that there's a pressure, but I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I feel like I put that pressure on myself a little bit as well.
I do,
because I feel like I need to prove it.
Absolutely.
I'm role modelling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I need to get this right. Yeah.
If I trip up, it has an impact on how they view all South Asians.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
But we don't. I think it's very difficult to get into a position where people see past your race or whatever it is and actually think you are good at that role. It takes a lot of time, and in some places it never happens. Sorry to say, but it
the
doesn't.
thing is, it's also
You
the
never
fact
get
that I feel like and I you know, with Asian women, that's the only like what I've experienced in terms of we do loads and loads of things right, but we get one little thing. It doesn't even have to be something that's wrong. It could be something that's slightly different. And we beat ourselves up over that so much because I think we are definitely like, I feel like we have more of the conversation about who we're supposed to be is you should not do anything wrong. You have to be the perfect this, that, and the other, and you have to be perfect to everything at all times. And when the onus of not making a mistake is like, oh my God, how can you do that?
Exactly.
And really, you're just human. It's absolutely fine. And 9 times out of 10 now, people are like, oh, it's fine, don't worry. It's fixable.
Yeah.
You know?
In the grand scheme of things, it's fixable. And it's that age-old, would a man worry?
Yeah.
Do you know what? This is going to sound absolutely awful.
Say it.
But I think since the pandemic, I have noticed myself asking that more.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like, obviously, we know statistically women did more, as you've just said in your personal kind of experience. Women did a lot more in the pandemic at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alongside their very busy full-time jobs, whether they were working from home or going in as key workers. But I just feel like I ask it more now of, if I was a man, would I be treated like this? Would this be expected of me? Would I have to have done this within the deadline? Or do you get what I mean? And I don't know why, but I felt like
But
I'm
it's true.
I'm asking it more.
Actually, you saying that, there is something that I did want to ask you. And because you said, especially during the pandemic, where you were like, you had to juggle. I mean, you had to juggle a lot anyway. But there it was sort of like you kind of had to sacrifice time with family and stuff like that. I might be making an assumption here, but please do correct me if I'm wrong. But if you felt any guilt, how did you deal with?
I think you did.
Like
you did.
how?
I remember speaking about this.
How did you deal with that, and what? Yeah, what was in just that term, and how you felt like, what was that process like, and how did you come out of it? If you can never come out of it,
It was really, really hard actually, because when you're so absorbed in what you're doing, you don't necessarily feel like you're just like, head down, I need to get this deal done, I need to do this. And it was during the pandemic, the whole world had stopped turning, everybody needed money. And that was effectively what my job was just lending money safely. But actually getting it done very, very quickly. So it wasn't just me working ridiculous hours. It was a few of my colleagues as well doing it. And yeah, the guilt was real, because it wasn't just the time that you were spending away from family. It was the fact that you're emotionally unavailable when you're with them.
Yeah,
I'd be with them physically, but mentally I'd be in my work, right?
Absolutely.
And I can say it now because I'm out of it, and my family friends saw it before I did. But your kids need you; they need your time. And I was constantly just frustrated, tired, and it would be my kids that bear the brunt of it, right? But and I just sat back and I thought, what is going on? What and that was one of the reasons for me. I thought, right,
something's got to give. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, to give. And that's I went through. That's when I went on that seminar as well, actually, and it all kind of made me think, right, I need to do something. What is it that's making me feel this way? Okay, it's my work, right? So then I need to do something about the work. And even my managers saw it before I did. They were like, "Dude, do you think you're doing too much? Are you sure you're coping okay?" And even having that conversation was difficult because it's an admission.
Yeah, it's an admission that something's wrong. Yeah,
that I'm struggling to balance.
You have to be vulnerable as well.
It's tough though, isn't it?
It's different, really different.
Show of vulnerability at work.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of women.
Yeah,
especially South Asian women. Yeah,
people are going to pounce on it and be like, right, well, she clearly can't cope.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not that you can't cope, is that you need support.
Yeah.
That's what a team is there for.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But you always feel like you have to do it.
But also, like you just said, that they're going to think that you're being, you can't cope. I feel like tags like that stay. I might be wrong, But I think that would stick to you then, isn't it? That would stick to you, that people will just constantly stop giving you work or stop. Yeah.
Think like, oh, she can't do it, so it hampers your future career.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I had such a good boss at the time, and he said to me, "Are you sure you're all right? Are you sure you're going?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And then, one day, everything just went wrong. I was supposed to be in a really senior committee. Our internet turned off.
Oh no.
Everything was just going wrong, and I remember I just found out my boss, and I was like, and I just unloaded to him, and he was like, I knew there was something wrong, but I couldn't help you until you told me.
You said.
Right?
Mm.
And you can keep asking somebody, is everything okay? But until they're ready to
share
that vulnerability, it's really difficult for them.
But also, the other person needs to be ready to hear it as well.
Exactly. And he did, and he used to check in on me all the time, like, how's it going? If you need to not attend this, or if you need to not do this. And I told him the truth. I'm like, look, I don't want you to think I can't cope. And he's like,
but you were homeschooling at the same time. Yeah.
This is something that nobody has ever had
to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I really want to say, oh my God, like my instinct would be, oh my God, you're so lucky to have a boss like that. But really, no.
No, there should be.
Everyone
at that
should
time,
be like
should
that.
It should,
that shouldn't be something that you're lucky for.
Because, and this is where corporate overtakes passion, right? Because they've got deadlines on them. So they forget that actually there's
a human. There's an actual human there.
And they're not. It's
true.
It's very true.
Hard. And it's hard being, a people line manager, right? Because you're absorbing everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've got your own stuff. You don't know.
Stuff,
but it's so good having, and having and being, that person. So when you're treated compassionately, you extend that to other people.
So
right? And it's important to have people like that around you.
Oh yeah.
Learn from, because I know that when I've never formally line managed. I have informally managed. But that's the kind of leader that I would like to be. Compassionate, somebody that has an open door, and creating that culture and that environment. And that's where I think actually we can probably do more to help each other.
Oh, absolutely.
I think we should, definitely.
That, you almost become so corporate that you forget your roots, and you forget that there are people that, like one of the main reasons for changing into my role is that I don't want people to face the issues that I did in their earlier careers, right? We need to do more of that, of, sharing our own experience, sharing our vulnerabilities. I mean, you quite often get very senior females, right? And you'll ask them, oh, you had a family and work, how did you cope? And the stock answer is usually, I had a nanny, or my husband.
Yes.
Well, that's not really helpful.
That's not the answer.
That's not the answer.
So that's not helpful. Because in reality, not everybody can afford a nanny.
Yeah, exactly.
Wants to have a nanny.
No.
They show your vulnerability.
Yeah.
Show the fact that you felt guilty because you missed sports day, or you felt guilty.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah,
vulnerability, because it makes it okay for other people to feel that.
to show the same vulnerability.
It's that culture of, especially for women. Oh yeah, you can have it all. And there's something, I can't remember who said it, but I read a quote of someone saying, you can have it all, but just at different times.
Yeah.
It's
a balance.
And it's a complete balance. And the thing is, we're never going to be able to, not feel guilty about these things. But, like just you talking in my head, I'm like, already you're on this journey of being such an amazing role model for your kids, and being able to be like, actually have them see somebody in a position where, you're of service of other people how you want to be, and being happy in a position where you are able to balance both sides of being in a professional role and being someone who is there for your family, figuring out how to balance that, but then also forgiving yourself through that, like feeling guilty and stuff like that.
That period was really hard.
Absolutely.
And, thinking back to how it, would have felt for the kids.
Yeah.
And with my elder daughter, she's very mature, and I had a very frank conversation with her. I said, look, I have not been here in the way that I would like to be. And she's like, no, Mummy, you're fantastic. And absolutely wonderful.
She is very mature for her age.
You know, and
Yeah.
I said, no. I said, I haven't been here in the way that I wanted to be. So now Mummy's going to start looking for new roles. And I remember when I went for my interview for this particular role that I'm in now, it was first thing in the morning, and she left the school. She said, Mummy, I'm going to think of you for interview. And then I went to pick up from school later in the day, and I actually got the call to say, you've
got it.
Successful, you've got the job. And the first person I told was her. So I went to school, and Mummy, how was your interview? And I said, yeah, I actually got the job. She was, what, they told you already yesterday? I said, I've got the job. And the first thing she said was, yeah, you will get Mummy back.
Oh.
But you know what? It's because also you had that conversation with her to be like, okay, she's
Very
my
real
child,
conversation, yeah.
but you are already like, because I would never have thought, like, I don't ever remember my mum ever talking to me about, because it just wasn't in their peripheral to be like, oh, hold on, let me be honest, open and honest with my children in order for them to understand, because they're so smart, they're so much smarter than we think they are, and already you've managed to open that conversation to say, I know you're quite young at the moment, but I'm going to tell you what's going on with me, and having that open conversation rather than, I'm your mum, I'm a role model that has everything right and I know everything. But you also gave her an insight of, actually, no, things can be a bit, and you were vulnerable with her. And I mean, I think that's amazing. Honestly, I think that's so amazing.
So true.
Yeah.
Should we start with the this or that?
Absolutely.
So obviously we are having a this or that session, and I feel like we've not even completed our conversation.
No,
but as usual,
we're running out of time.
We could do a round 2.
We could probably
Thank
do
you
a
for
round
volunteering
2.
to come in for round 2.
Honestly. Absolutely. Oh my god.
Absolutely. Okay, so this or that, and Shyama's going to start.
Okay. So my ones aren't anything. Well, they might be a bit linked to what you're doing, but not even controversial, but might be linked. But
I might be changing one of mine.
Early bird or night owl?
Early bird.
That was so easy. Talking or listening?
Listening.
Oh, okay.
I do like talking, but I like to listen to other people as well.
Fair enough.
That's what makes a good line manager.
So
good
true.
Boss, good CEO.
She's the CEO of her life.
Glam up or dress down?
Dress down, definitely.
Okay, I'm going to change one of mine because I feel like you've already answered it.
Okay.
But this is not that one. I'm going to do that last. Okay, leader or follower?
Okay.
If you'd said to me probably 18 months, 2 years ago, I would have said follower.
Oh, interesting.
My own journey.
Oh, there you go. I love that.
That's so cool.
Well, talking of being a leader, this is a little bit more, what's the word? Literal. Driver or passenger princess?
I know it's been reality that I avoid driving. So passenger princess.
Yay!
We have another one here, as you can see. Okay, so this is one I was going to change. It was something I was going to ask you, but I feel like you've already answered it, and I think it's very obvious from the conversation what you would have said. So I've got another one: self-love or outside validation.
God.
Because we all need both. We all need both.
Outside validation is always an element, I think, to everyone. But as I've got older and I've been through different experiences, I think self-love is just, if you don't practice that, you can't possibly love anybody else.
It's true. Very, very true. Oh my god.
Thank you so much for joining us.
This has been incredible.
Been lovely, and we have already set ourselves up for a part 2.
Absolutely.
So obviously it's been a great success.
Absolutely. And but when we speak to you next, there's probably going to be even more stuff that you're going to be like, yeah, I did this. Oh, by the way, I'm leading this team. I'm so ready for it. I'm so ready for it.
We're manifesting it here.
Yes,
just to
absolutely.
Let you know.
We're cheerleading you on.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Oh my god.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening to this.
Thank you so much.
Guest, which is as important as any other guest, and it's been an important conversation again. So thank you so much, Jigs, for joining us and letting us know that no matter at what age and no matter at what point you are in your career, you can make a safe move somewhere else.
Absolutely.
Successfully.
passions, and you're aware.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook. You can email us. We've got an email address, voiceout@podcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much to DJ Shy Guy, who has done our jingle for us. We love you. Thank you so much.
Yes, and we don't want to keep it in.
We want to
voice it out. Bye.